my name is Brenna Ferris, and I'm the Library Assistant for Access Services at the Franklin Library. And today I'd like to share with you a presentation about finding books in the library. Part of my reasoning for wanting to do this presentation for you is because in my job I consistently get asked questions about finding books on the shelf. Many people will come up to me and say that they have their call number written down, but they don't even know where to begin looking. So hopefully this video will provide some instruction to you so that you can successfully and confidently find books on your own. So today we'll be going over understanding LOC or Library of Congress call numbers and what each of those numbers and letters mean, learning to find and or shelve books, and lastly, we're going to practice the new skill that we've learned using some online tests that I find really helpful. So what is a call number? So a call number is used to place a book in its appropriate section based on the subject of the book. And just so we're all on the same page, call numbers are these little stickers on either the spine or the cover of the books, and it includes letters and numbers in a certain order that will tell you where to find the book. So these little stickers act kind of like a map and will help guide you to directly the spot in the shelf in the library where the book will be. And these unique shelf location numbers, the ones that look like this, all these right here, allow the books to be organized alphabetically by LC subject letters and numbers. And this is just to keep grouping like subjects together, and this makes it much easier on the patron to go and look for books, but also find other books that maybe they weren't searching for that are also going to help them on their research. So now let's go over what each of these individual lines mean. So the top line, as exemplified here, QE, indicates a general subject area, and this is always going to be presented on the shelf in alphabetical order. The second line, it's going to be in numbers and indicates more specifically the subject area. And again, this is going to be presented on the shelf in numerical order and should be read as whole numbers. The third line, which in our example here is point D5, is the first combination of letters and numbers that we see, and these often represent author's last name. And these are going to be presented in alphabetical and then decimal order. So instead of being read as a whole number like the one above, this should then be read as a decimal. The next lines, which sometimes are not always present, are a combination of letters and numbers like the one above, and just continue to refine. And then lastly, the last line is usually a year of publication. Again, this is not always present, and of course this will be presented chronologically. And this is important specifically for the library collection that you're in, but usually library location is indicated above the very first letter line. So now imagine that we have a call number and we're ready to go search for our book. So one of my biggest tips that I tell people to use when they're first starting to learn how to do this is to go line by line. Don't view it all as a whole, but simply just look at one line by line. So once you find the general location of the book, you're going to start with the top line of the call number, which is usually our letter line. And sometimes the first and second lines, as viewed here, so LC here and 3501 here, sometimes those are actually printed combined. And that's not because there's like a difference in the call number at all. It usually just has to deal with that there's like a printing malfunction or like a formatting issue when the little stickers are printed off. So here in this example, our first and second lines are actually combined. So if we were to separate them, the first line would just be Q and the second line would just be 5. But anyway, these are together and they're still going to mean the same thing. This just means that you need to first find the Q section, and then once you find the Qs, then you can find 5. And again, letters should be sorted alphabetically. And if followed by a number, it should be sorted numerically, and not only numerically, but as a whole number. It should be read as a whole number. Now, the second line, as we talked about, the second or third line, depending on whether or not this is together or not, is going to be a dot followed by a letter and then numbers. And the letter will be shelved in alphabetical order, like usual. However, the numbers should be treated as a decimal. And if there is another line with a letter followed by numbers below this line, treat this line the same as the second, with letters in alphabetical order and the numbers ordered as decimals, even if there is no decimal point present. So just to give you a better example, so this line right here, we have a decimal point, an M, which is read alphabetically, and a 3, which is read as a decimal. And then the line below, also an A, a letter, and a number, and here we have an A and an 8, but there's no decimal point present. But if it comes after one that has already included a decimal point, we're going to read the next line also as a decimal. So this would be 0.8 instead of 8 as a whole number. And remember that these lines aren't always present. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It just depends on the book that you're looking at. And same with the last line, if there is one, it will usually state the year the book was published, and as usual, this should be placed in chronological order. Now, if you'd like a little bit more real-time visual, I've linked a helpful YouTube video here that I enjoy watching, and some others that I've taught this skill enjoy it too. So now that we know what each individual line means and how we read it, let's do some practice. So I want you to try to do 4 and group this 4 call number group and try to order them within themselves. So here we have 4 different call numbers. This first one here is M15, and like I said before, the first and second lines have been merged together. And this is relatively common that you would see at Fisk that the first and second lines are merged together, but just remember that they are theoretically still separate. So take a look at these 4 numbers. So the first one here we have is M15.B25 L2. Next one that we have is M15.B25 L122. Then the next one we have is M15.5, and this is where we've seen the first difference. So as these two are both M15, and this one here are both M15.5. So because this is M15.5 and this is just M15, we know that these two are going to be placed after these two. So we don't have to move anything yet. And if you remember, let's just take this line by line. So because we've already figured out how these are ordered by their first line, let's then move on to the second. We have point B25, point B25. So these don't need to be moved around within themselves. This one is point B3, and this one is point B12. Now here there is a difference between point B3 and point B12. And if you remember, the second line should be read as a decimal. The number should be. So 0.12 is smaller than 0.3. So this one is actually going to come before this one. So now we've done our little switcheroo, and we've put this one in the middle where it belongs because 0.12 is smaller than 0.3. So now we can continue. So we know that these don't need to be moved yet. And now we go on to the next line. So this is L2, and this is L122. Now, if you remember, I said that after we see the line that's present that has a decimal, the ones below it, if it's a combination of letters and numbers, it's going to be read as a decimal even if there is not a decimal point present. So since we know that, then we know that 0.122 is smaller than 0.2. So we know that this one should come before this one. So now we've done another little switcheroo, and we've placed 0.122 in front of 0.2 because it's smaller. Now let's go through and see if everything looks good. So M15, point B25, point B25, L22, L2, 15.5, 15.5, point 12, point 3. So far it looks good, and we have successfully put these 4 call numbers in order. So I hope that I provided a good explanation for why each one was moved to where it was, and usually that's based on, at least in this example, based on these decimal values and needing to be read as a decimal versus a whole number, like this top line here. Um, so yeah, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or go back to earlier sections of this video. And if you want more practice and examples, I have linked this really helpful website right here. I actually really love this. It's from the library at Kent University, and they have an awesome little Library of Congress shelf reading tutorial that just involves little tests that I think that are really helpful. It's very interactive. It's like playing a game, but you will need to download Adobe Flash Player just so you can see the images and participate. But anywho, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Brenna Ferris, and I'm the Library Assistant for Access Services. And I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you can now walk into the library with a little bit more confidence. So thank you.